Hello and welcome to the Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. So first, I want to thank you for sending some submissions. And funny is I just didn't press record a moment ago and did this whole video once without recording. So I'm going to just say it all again. So let's hope I can go back and figure out everything I said. I'll probably condense it because I think it got wordy. So what we have today is an anonymous male left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of November 8th, 2024, and a date of marriage of 2020. He has a clinging boomerang who is a high-energy replayer. And he says that he's unclear on how long the active monstering phase range is. He says everyone keeps talking about several years and 7 years. And then he says, I can't handle having these attacks that long. I might hold out for another year or so. If I thought that was all it was going to take for the attacks, but I prefer, honestly, for her to go. Let's see. I prefer her to go quiet and ignore me for a few years rather than what she's doing. She attacks, goes no contact, breadcrumbs, attacks, and repeats. The cycle lasts 1 to 3 weeks. And it was every few days. Okay, so first, it's not a monstering phase. Unfortunately for you, you have an MLCer who's in monster, who is doing monstering. Not all of them do that. And it sounds to me like she's in constant monster. Or, as you say, she cycles, but you noticed a pattern of a 1 to 3 week where monster and breadcrumbing and attacks. Let's see, you said attack, no contact, breadcrumb, attack, repeat. And so are there 2 pieces of attack, a sandwich of that? So you're noticing that there's a pattern and monster is just, bookending that. I'd call that just a constant thing of monster then. Okay. That's not how I don't want to say normal because that's on the spectrum. We have many who do that, but no, that is not how all MLCers are. Mine, until later on in the crisis, I said I had 3 days of monster. There were 3 days in a row in the beginning. And later he had some charming monster, but he wasn't in monster most of the time. I was able to describe monster and I saw it. And maybe in a few arguments, but no, he was not monster. So, and then I saw some on the boards that were always in monster. Or you would have monster that lasted for a few weeks. Or, well, whenever you are an obstacle in their way is when you see monster. That's when I would see monster. He saw me as an obstacle. I'm an obstacle in what he thinks in his goals. And so that monster wants to get the obstacle out of their way, however they can. But what you're really talking about, that several years and 7 years, you are talking about escape and avoid. Midlife crisis, the stages of midlife crisis. The bomb drop introduces the escape and avoid stage. That is stage 3. There are a few that come before that. They're actually not a big deal in importance because what you experience for most of the time is going to be escape and avoid. Jim Conway called that stage replay. I don't call that stage replay. I say one of the phases, and I use the word phase or types of escape and avoid types is replay, high energy replay, because some MLCers are low energy. So I call them low energy wallowers because low energy wallowers will try to be high energy replayers and they fail. According to you, what you've described, you do have a high energy replayer. But I don't call replay one of the stages because there are some that they still go through an escape and avoid, which is the basics of what replayers are doing. When I say replay, I meant Jim Conway's stage. I just felt escape and avoid is better, and the high energy things that went with what he described, I call the bachelor party lifestyle. They don't all do that. Those who are obviously depressed or overtly depressed, low energy wallowers. Okay, so what is several years and 7 years is, sorry, although I guess it's good that it's not escape and avoid, but midlife crisis itself. Midlife crisis lasts 3 to upwards of 7 years. Upwards of, because it can go longer. Not merely those who just get stuck and by 80 they're just cranky old men or old women. The woman on the house with all the cats, and the guy who all the kids are afraid of him. Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace, if you're familiar with that or anything. But they're all afraid to go there, and the paper boy is afraid to deliver the paper, and they go knock and they run, and that sort of that neighbor, the crotchety old one. So maybe those are the guys and men and women that got stuck. But most of them, no, they go through their midlife crisis, and most of them don't have as short as 3 years, but it's on the spectrum. Most of them don't go beyond the 7, but it is more on the spectrum than the 3, those that are only as short as 3 years. Okay. So what I'm more concerned about is she is doing this, and you would like her to just be quiet and ignore you. But the thing is, parts of that are within your control. So we teach people how to treat us, and she is attacking. She goes no contact, not you. And 1 to 3 weeks. So in other words, she doesn't really go no contact. She just doesn't contact you for, if the cycle lasts 1 week and there's an attack, and no contact, breadcrumbing, and attack all within that in 7 days, that's not long enough for us to say no contact. It just means, like, let's say 2 days she didn't contact you. So she does that. She's the one in control, and you're following her lead. And there are times where we say follow their lead. But that's really when it's smart contact. And should I contact them? How often? What should I say? Should I let them call, or should I call? Right now, there's a lead you can take. And you can take the lead in saying, you know what? You need to stop contacting me. Or, you know what? That's not appropriate behavior. And if you're going to act that way in front of me or on the phone, I'm going to hang up, and I will do it right now. Or I'm not going to let you come over, or I'm not going to see you. And you shut the door. You say, no, you can't come over and get your stuff right now. I'm not available. You set the boundary. This is now your space. If she has moved out, there are some boundaries that are a lot harder to, not just that they're harder to set, but consequences are very difficult because you have to follow through. Otherwise, you just taught them where they can break through on you. But you set those boundaries, and you tell them what the consequence is going to be. So you need to know the boundary ahead of time. You communicate the boundary, because with some of these boundaries, it's really not fair if they didn't know. For some things, especially if you've been letting them come and go to the house, and then suddenly it changes and you get mad at them and set a consequence. But yesterday it was fine when I walked in the door. What's the problem? And, well, you're disrespecting me. I'm sorry, I'm disrespecting you. You could have told me. So you communicate it. Because they're being disrespectful all across the board on midlife crisis doesn't mean you need to be. So what you need to do is you need to work on your boundaries. And it's going to be hard. And to work on your boundaries, you need to set some time for your healing, because it's not going to work if you're not getting yourself emotionally regulated to be able to handle this. One of the things she's doing with this breadcrumbing, it's not just testing you to poke at you so that she can monster some more, but she's probably seeking some reassurance. Is he there? Is he interested? Is he still going to be nice? The way I've treated him is terrible, but is he still there? And she might be looking at you as a stable figure. And be careful. Stable in this context sometimes means father figure. And you don't want that. You can be emotionally stable figure. That's great. But you don't want to set up a dynamic of you above her, because she's supposed to be your equal as a partner. And we know right now that if you're emotionally regulated and being mature and she's not, you're not there. But you were once. And I want you to get yourself healed. And you need to figure out how to do that and what you need to do, because you need to be detached so that your emotions, as she's doing this, aren't going crazy with hers, because they've been doing that, haven't they? That's why you can't handle this. And you might not be able to handle it for more than another year anyway. And that's okay if you can't. Not everybody can. It's okay. So I also want you to give yourself some grace. But the next thing, I want you to do no contact. Because with all that she is doing, every 1 to 3 weeks, doing this whole cycle of attacking, monstering, it's not giving you a break to just breathe and heal. It's tensing you up and it's making you anxious. And it's not healthy for you. It's helping you to become emotionally dysregulated. It's putting you in a greater state of trauma. So it's harder to heal. It's working against your healing. It's making you worse. And that's not good for anything. It's not good if you're going to reconcile someday. But it's not good for your later healing if you don't. And I want you to heal. I want you to heal so that you can have the option for that reconciliation, which may be way out in the future. But here's how you get to reconciliation. It's the same way. You do the same things you would to get to divorce. You heal, you detach, and you be grace. You look at everything with the lens of detachment and grace and non-judgment. In other words, you set the boundary and you hold her accountable, but she is behaving badly. The judgment is on her character, which I don't want you to judge her character as, you are such a bad person. She's behaving badly. She probably knows that. Guilt and shame is in her. But I want you to focus on your healing and what you need to do with that. Okay? And that means no contact. There are 2 kinds, and I'm recommending the first kind. The second kind is for later in a midlife crisis when cake eating is at its height, and you probably think, well, yeah, she is at a height of cake eating with all of this monstering. And if she keeps doing things like trying to live in 2 worlds, you didn't say there's an affair, but if I'm going to just act as though there is right now, given the high level of things going on. Maybe not. They want to live in both worlds. And maybe she's saying that when she's giving you mixed messages, coming home and breadcrumbing. But here's the difference. After, let's say, 3 years, you've been doing this. After 3 years, she feels reassured. You have healed, and you're standing, and you aren't going anywhere. And you are emotionally regulated. You set good boundaries. And she knows that you're not going anywhere. You're not being a doormat. But she knows you're there. She knows she can count on you. And I'm hoping you're not enabling. We can be an enabler even if we're emotionally regulated. We got to be careful of it. But she knows she can count on you. She knows no matter what, I always have something to fall back on, so I don't need to worry. So I can go off and play. I can always, I've always got a safety net. She's reassured. Right now, those breadcrumbing, is he still there? When their reassurance is set, they don't have to ask if he's still there or she's still there. They know that spouse is still there. Odysseus knew Penelope was still there waiting. He was solid on that. He knew. So once you know, then she can safely cake eating. That's the height of cake eating. And that takes a few years to get that level of reassurance. You're not there yet. So right now, this is a limited contact, no contact, or a limited time period, no contact. You tell her that you need space, and you tell her it's not a punishment for her. And it's not because you're mad at her, but it's because you just need some time to heal. And yeah, you'll miss her if she asks you. But with all of the drama and trauma that you have both been going through, you need a break. And you can tell her, you know what? You left. I'm supposing she did. And you left, and you know what? I think that means you need a break too. So maybe you should take this time as well. But it's up to you. But for me, I just need some time away from the drama. I need some time to cool my brain down from the emotional trauma and the ups and downs, up and up and up and up and then down and down, and the confusion, the mixed messages. I just need some peace and quiet and calm time. And I recommend 4 to 6 weeks. Now, you need to make a determination on how much time that is before you have a conversation with her. Because when you go to her, you give her starting here and the ending date. And then the ending date, you can tell her, so you can call me again on this day and see how I'm doing and see if I'm ready, or we can extend it if I'm not, or maybe you won't be ready. Maybe you'll have decided that the space has been good. I don't want you to be afraid of that. A lot of left behind and forward moving spouses are afraid of that. And they're like, oh no, is my spouse going to be a vanisher now? It doesn't mean that. Okay. But I want you to take that for your healing, because I want you to be able to set really good boundaries. Because right now she's coming in and you haven't said that. There's not a lot of space on my submission to say anything either. But I don't know what you're doing to try to stop her from this. And are you hoping for these breadcrumbs? Are you accepting them and pining for them and inviting them? Maybe unknowingly, subconsciously. When she's gone, are you wondering when they're going to come back? Are you worried when they're, oh no, she's coming back again? But what kind of subconscious messages, vibes are you giving up? Oh no, she's coming back again. But what kind of subconscious messages, vibes are you giving off? Is she reading also? I want you to set those boundaries. And especially if she's not at home, you set the boundaries around your space. That's your, whatever it is, your space and her space. If she's at home, you have more control if she keeps asking you for dinner. It's like, no. You set boundaries around time, when she can call, when she can't, and she will call you. You're the one who has to hold to the boundary. Don't expect her to hold to them. She will try to break them. So if it's a phone call, it's not a bad consequence on that one. You just don't answer the phone. Some where they can break through because we can not answer a phone, but there's somewhere we can't stop something, like cheating. Then you have to have a consequence that has something bigger. And those are hard to figure out. Okay. But it's up to you to figure it out. And if you're in therapy, keep going. If you're not, I do recommend it. Okay. Because I want you to get some help. I want you to work on detachment and mindfulness, being calm, because emotional regulation, you may not be able to do this beyond here. But let's see if we can get the two of you enough space between you and you detached so that she isn't monstering at you. And the next thing, I'm going to assume that I did it in the one that said I hadn't started the recording, I hope, so I'm not repeating myself now. But what might happen is she may not stop monstering, but she might not monster at you. Sometimes they just switch to someone else. Okay. So Chuck switched to his brother's wife, and she and I were good friends. So Chuck was talking to me all the time, and we just gab on the phone, he and I, and he would talk to me and he'd commiserate with me, and he'd say, you know, I think Wendy is bipolar. Then I'd call Wendy, and we were great friends, and Wendy and I would laugh our heads off at that because it was pretty darn funny. So, but it was nice that somebody else was the target. So what that means is she's not ready, maybe she won't be ready. But when you stop reacting and allowing the escalations, she might start and think, or she'll just go somewhere else to see who will react. Because she's going to test you, and she's going to up the ante and up the ante, escalate it higher and higher. And what more can you do? What more can she do to get you to react, to do something? And your job is to just work on being calm. Okay? And so some of that is going to be training with your detachment and mindfulness. Okay? So I want you to think about those things. And I hope that can help